Hello and happy Holy Week. That's almost alliteration, but not really. 3 H's.
I think
Father Darryl here from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, along with Father Michael Liliedahl just south of San Francisco. Hello, how are you?
I am doing well, and I will count it as alliteration. It is close enough, as they say, for government work, so I will take it. Happy Holy Week to you as well. So,
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, this is a quite the week. There's a lot going on, a lot of different liturgies to get to, and yeah, we'll try to do this in a half hour.
yeah, we'll try. And because here's the thing: is some of the liturgies have a little bit more than your standard 3 readings as well, and so we'll talk about those as well. So, and not only are they a little bit more, the readings themselves are quite long to top it off. So there is a lot of material to be preaching on for the next few days.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those ones too where, as a preacher, it's an interesting thing to try to strike the balance. You don't want to necessarily go too long because the readings themselves are long, but you also don't want to give things short shrift either. So there's it's an interesting little thing to try to preach during these days. But for us in our diocese, we're actually starting off these next few days with something that in our diocese we typically have earlier in the week, but the Roman Missal actually suggests it should be Thursday morning, and that is with the Chrism Mass. So this is a Mass where usually all or most of the priests get together with the bishop, along with a lot of representatives from the parishes usually. And in particular, 2 big things happen. First of all, the priests renew their priestly promises. That's another set of alliteration there. And the other thing is that the bishop will bless and consecrate the holy oils that are to be used through the next year. Now, we typically have ours on the Monday of Holy Week because we're a pretty rural diocese and there's a lot of travel for a number of our parishes. But oddly enough, this past Monday, we're in Saskatchewan, and the day before on Sunday, it got up to plus 18 degrees Celsius. It's about 64 Fahrenheit. Beautiful, beautiful day. And then on Monday, blizzard. Massive snowstorm. So oddly enough, the cathedral, I guess, was out of power for a good chunk of the day. So they called it off and said, okay, we'll move it to Thursday. I guess they wanted power or something.
Oh, I mean, what are they so greedy? They need power to run their building or whatnot. But it always reminds me of the stand-up comedian Lewis Black, who was talking about weather, where he said, and he was talking about, I think in Boston or New England, where he said, it's 70 and then it's 20 and then it's 60 and then it's 10. He goes, that's not weather, that's malaria. That's what happens when you have malaria. And so we definitely did not have that situation here in San Francisco. It's been pretty consistent here. But as I was telling Father Darryl before we started that, we have our Chrism Masses always on the books for the Thursday before Holy Week begins, just because, we're not a rural diocese. Everyone lives pretty close to the cathedral, but Holy Week just gets so busy for guys that to add in a Chrism Mass during the week can be a lot, especially with penance services and reconciliation services, planning for the liturgies and everything that has to happen. But we had a little change this year because the Thursday of last week was the Annunciation, right? When Gabriel comes to Mary and announces that she will bear the child Jesus. And so we had ours last night. And so we had that Mass, and it's beautiful, right? The opportunity to stand together with your brother priest, to renew those promises, to see the oils blessed, to see the oils consecrated. And then afterwards, everyone kind of gets in a line and we get our bag that has the oils that have just been consecrated to bring back to our parish, that we will use for the baptisms for the upcoming year, for the anointings of the sick for the upcoming year, for everything that happens that require the oils. Those are the oils we use that are all blessed and consecrated together. So it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, it is a great Mass. Now, our last Chrism Mass happened in October because, all the restrictions and everything, right? So what's actually happening this year, because we all have pretty fresh oil, it was October. So we're consecrating and blessing a smaller amount of oil, basically to top up what we have if we need it. So there won't actually be the big lineup after this Mass necessarily. Some parishes might need some, which is, that's why it's there. But for most of us. We got a lot in October, and well, not a whole lot has happened since. So
yeah, well, and here's one of the things though is I was thinking about this is we should not really talk about the readings too much for the Chrism Mass. One, because we have so many other readings, but in our diocese at least, the only person or the only people who were allowed were priests to come to because of the numbers and social distancing. So we had the priests and then members of religious communities. So we have a missionary charity community here and a couple other communities of religious sisters and brothers came. But it was not a Mass that was open for everybody. Also, this Mass has to be celebrated by the bishop. I think the bishop is the only one normally and ordinarily who's allowed to consecrate the oils. In case of an emergency, a priest can bless his own oils for the anointing of the sick. But in the normal course of events, only the bishop can bless the oil. So the bishop is there, which means he is preaching, which means that neither of us, as we were saying, God willing, fingers crossed, hopefully we will never in our lives have to preach a Chrism Mass.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you do need a bishop to consecrate the sacred chrism. So, we had a few years ago an interregnum, our one bishop had been transferred to another diocese. And so what had happened? I think he might have come back, or maybe we had a retired bishop that year, actually, who lives in the diocese, and he presided the Chrism Mass because you need a bishop to consecrate the sacred chrism. So great celebration. Looking forward to tomorrow, but it'll be different just because everything's smaller. So.
So let's move to the other Mass that happens tomorrow, and this is the Mass that you will see done at your local parish, and it's how do you describe this? This is kind of not the Mass of Masses, but this is the Mass that celebrates the institution of the Mass itself. And in some sense, it's the Mass of the institution of the Eucharist. So it's called the Mass of the Lord's Supper. And as you can imagine, the gospel takes place during the Last Supper. But what is fascinating is most people may not realize is the gospel reading, at least this year, is not the institution of the Eucharist. So you have the Mass of the Lord's Supper, where the Eucharist is instituted, but the gospel reading is not the institution of the Eucharist, but rather something else that happens at the Last Supper.
Exactly. And the readings, I think that they're the same every year. And it's always the passage from the Gospel of John where Jesus washes the feet. Yeah.
So before we get to that, to kind of read it, I have a question for you. Are you guys washing feet this year? Because we are not washing feet this year.
We are not as well, just because of the whole distancing thing, basically. So
yeah,
like last year, of course, the Holy Thursday Mass, there were 5 of us there, 4 of us there, a couple people doing music and myself and my associate and a camera. This year we can have up to 150 or 30%, whatever's less, but still no washing of the feet. So that part will get skipped. But yeah, we still hear that gospel though. So did you want me to proclaim this gospel? Do you want to say it?
Yeah, why don't you proclaim the gospel and I'll offer some quick reflections and we'll keep moving on to all the other readings that we have coming up this the next few days.
All right. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus said to him, one who is bathed does not need to wash except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you. For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason he said, not all of you are clean. After he had washed their feet, put on his robe, and returned to the table, Jesus said to them, do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you should do as I have done to you. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Now, I have to be honest that I was kind of preparing a homily, and I was telling Father Darryl, I'm looking forward to, because this is actually the first Mass of the Lord's Supper that I get to celebrate, to be the celebrant of. And so the first one I get to preach. The first parish is that for the two times the pastor did both, did all the celebrations. So he did the Holy Thursday, he did Good Friday, and he did the Easter Vigil. At the parish I'm at now, last year, I was the one filming it because I had the camera, the phone that would allow us to live stream. We're still trying to work all that out. And so again, the pastor did it. But this year, we've kind of settled into a live stream routine. We have somebody who comes in to volunteers their time to do it. And so he said that I'm doing this Mass and he's going to do the Easter Vigil, and the other associate will be doing the Good Friday Mass. And so I'm looking forward to it. It's the first time I get to preach on it. And I was getting excited because when I hear this gospel, I always am actually drawn to confession, because the washing of the feet is Jesus washing the dirtiest, nastiest, smelliest, grossest part of the people. And this is a point I made because I will say we already kind of filmed and showed, we were given a time for the Holy Week liturgy at the high school. And so we did this gospel. And I remember saying, they didn't have socks that they could wash frequently. They basically had leather strapped sandals, which meant they were walking around in the heat. They were walking a lot. Their feet were very sweaty, right? There weren't paved sidewalks and nice boardwalks. They were walking in dirt with sweaty feet, collecting all this dirt. Of course, they weren't the only ones walking on the street. There were animals. And so you have evidence of animals being on the street as well that's collecting on their feet. And then I said, one of the things that you may not even kind of take into account is before they would have gone to the supper, they would have gone to the temple to offer their sacrifice. And part of their sacrifice is that the priest would take the blood and sprinkle it on the people. So their feet had kind of four things on them that we would consider kind of gross to have to wash off somebody else's feet. It would be sweaty, dirty, bloody, and have feces on them. And I said that was literally the dirtiest part of who they were at that time. And Jesus says, this is why I've come. This is where I'm going to begin the washing. And I always equate that with confession. The Lord comes and he wants to wash us clean of the most dirty part of us, the part that we kind of want to be hidden, the part that we don't want to show everybody. I was talking with my high school students and talking about the washing of the feet. And one of them said, I don't know if I could let somebody do that. They said, it just seems so weird to let, and the way the high school put it, it'd be so weird to let a dude rub my feet. And I said, that's almost the point, that it is so weird, so countercultural that this is what we're supposed to do. And I love this idea of tying it in where Jesus says, right, whoever has bathed has no need except to have his feet washed, right? So it's, if you talk about that being bathed in baptism, well, when the parts of us get dirty after baptism, that's the part Jesus comes to wash for us. So I was thinking about preaching on this until I was reading in the Missal, because they actually give instructions on what the priest is supposed to preach on for Holy Thursday. And so it says in the book that the priest has to read, it says, after the proclamation of the gospel, the priest gives a homily in which light is shed on the principal mysteries that are commemorated in this Mass, namely the institution of the Holy Eucharist and of the priestly order, and the commandment of the Lord concerning fraternal charity. And so those are your instructions. You are to preach either on the Eucharist and the priesthood or on fraternal charity. And I was thinking, there is a way to tie that in. I could talk about confession, that now that we have been forgiven, we have the mission to be charitable and to forgive others, that forgiveness is one of the primary means of charity, I think, as well in the world. So you can tie it in. But I was thinking, like you were saying, right? There's a lot going on at these masses, and so you don't want to preach for too long. And actually, my pastor just this morning reminded me. He said, just a reminder, we are still under the directives to keep homilies short, so that we're not keeping people for really long periods of time. And so I think I'm just going to talk about the supreme act of service of what Jesus did. And I'll probably mention the how dirty people's feet were, that Jesus goes right to the dirtiest part, and that's the part he serves. He doesn't do what is easy for him, right? It would have been easy for him to wash their hands or to wash their face, but he washes the dirtiest part. And so we are called to serve in perhaps ways that are uncomfortable. We're called to serve in ways that are perhaps gross or dirty or disgusting or seem weird to us, the way my high school student put it. So that's probably where I'm going on this one. Nothing too profound or in my mind, I think it's not profound, it's not deep, but on the surface, it actually is, right? Serve as Jesus did. Wash the dirtiest part of somebody else. And allow yourself to be served that way as well. So
absolutely. I mean, and it's literally the point he made in the gospel. So if it was good enough for him, it should be good enough for us. I mean, the other thing
and
too
actually,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think I remember in the discussions at the Council of Trent, they considered making the washing of the feet one of the sacraments. And they ended up in the wisdom of the church through the guidance of the Holy Spirit, not declaring it a sacrament. But, it was kind of held, especially throughout the tradition of the churches, of such great importance that it was almost considered a sacrament.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's very profound. And I think you can also use it as a launching point to connect it to the day after, spoiler alert, Good Friday, because you think of Jesus going right into the depths, going right into what's the stinkiest and what's most in need of healing. Well, it's setting the stage for the day when he actually most profoundly does that, when he dives even into death itself and lets our sins wash over him and the whole thing, right? So it really sets the stage, and I think I'm kind of leaning towards a similar idea as what you've been doing for this year, which I guess I did last year as well, but it just strikes me during this whole situation we're all in right now, that the model of the Lord and his commandment to service, I think it's one of those things I think I need to hear, to keep in mind, and I think it's good for all of us. All drawing from the power of the Eucharist, of course. But I think in this particular day and age, we've got a very pointed challenge and even responsibility to seek how we can serve one another in really difficult times. So, it's kind of where I'm going.
Okay. Well, speaking of being that kind of lead in and that connection to Good Friday, is there a particular reading on the Good Friday? I'll say this, the Good Friday part of the liturgy, because a reminder that the Mass of the Lord's Supper, Good Friday, and the Easter Vigil are all technically one liturgy. So this is actually, I guess you could say, one liturgy, 3 homilies.
Yeah, basically, right? So this is the one time where our usual thing of how many homilies do you preach? 3. Or whatever. But in different days. I see in the comments here too, hello Claire, and Gloria is mentioning washer fluid, wiper fluid, which we really need right now because it's muddy. I don't know if that's a reference to washing the feet or not. Topping up your wiper fluid in the car. But anyway, could be, actually, that could be a branching off point. That's pretty good. I like
that could be a good one, yeah. And I was thinking actually about that, kind of the topping off of the oils in a car when you were talking about most of your oils at your parish, because you just had the Chrism Mass a few months ago. They just need to be topped off. And I was thinking, it's a good time, just to like a top off of your car.
Yeah, I got to get my winter tires changed soon too, but I don't want to do it too soon because, hey, I'm glad I did this last week. Anyway, winter tires are probably not something you change a whole lot there.
No, I don't even think winter tires are legal here. So.
Oh, okay. All right.
I know I don't own any. And I am right now on the website that has the gospel for Good Friday. I don't think we'll read it because that'll take the rest of the half hour that we have available. It's another long one. And as you can expect, it is the passion and the crucifixion of Jesus. So I will just kind of ask you, what are you kind of thinking about preaching about on Good Friday? Are you going to really look at the gospel? Are you going to look at, the event of the passion itself, or are you going to look at one of the other readings, or what are you looking at?
I think I'm leaning towards, and I guess I did this on Palm Sunday already, but more about the event itself. And again, keeping it pretty short, because not only is it the reading of the Passion narrative, which is long, and the first reading is also pretty long from Isaiah, there are also 10 traditional intercessions that you pray at this liturgy as well, that are prayed everywhere throughout the world. So, and that's before you even get to the distribution of communion. And I don't know if you guys are doing a communal adoration of the Holy Cross, or if it's an individual. Here we've been told to do a communal adoration, so people aren't moving around too much.
I will say we're kind of doing both. Within the liturgy itself, we're doing a communal one, and then we're going to have the cross available for individual adoration of the cross afterwards.
Yeah, okay. So kind of a hybrid. Yeah. So there's a lot going on, even with the more simplified versions that happen this year because of Corona tide. But there's a lot going on. So part of me just wants to, kind of similar to Palm Sunday, keep it simple. And in my mind, Good Friday is really all about the fact that God loves every single person enough that that's what he's willing to do for them. And it's mind-blowing. And let's just sit with that mystery for a bit.
Yeah. Honestly, it was one of those things, and, people may not have gone to the part of the liturgy that happens on Good Friday. And so, I realize we're talking about the adoration of the cross, and people may not be familiar with that, but in normal non-COVID times, what happens is the priest and the server, deacons, whoever they have the cross, and people come up to it one by one, and they can either kind of kneel before it. A lot of people will kiss the cross or touch the cross. I've seen it done with a corpus on it, so with the body of Christ, and so people will kiss the feet of Jesus, kiss the nails that were in his feet. And it was actually one of the more profound, kind of moving spiritual moments for me as a seminarian, when I was asked to help out at a parish, kind of holding the cross. So I was holding the cross, and I had a purificator to kind of wipe down where people would touch. And honestly, the thing that kept coming to me was that same sentiment that you were saying, that he did this for everyone. And you may not be familiar with this poem because it's on the base of the Statue of Liberty. And the first couple of lines of the poem that's on the base of the Statue of Liberty kept coming to me, which was, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free." And I felt like that's what Jesus is saying when he's on the cross. Give me your tired, give me your poor, give me your huddled masses yearning to be free. And I don't know how the poem ends on the Statue of Liberty, but I do know those two lines. And that's really kind of what kept going through my mind, like, who is called to the cross? The tired, the poor, the huddled masses yearning to be free.
Yeah, I mean, it's the second reading too from Hebrews. "Let us therefore approach the throne of grace with boldness, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need." I mean, that's what it reminded me of, but yeah. So, yeah, I'll be honest, I've not actually sat down to write it yet. It ended up being a busier week, but I'm thinking keeping this, like I did for Palm Sunday, relatively simple. My Palm Sunday homily was 4 minutes. 4 minutes and 1 second because I recorded it,
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like you don't want to go too much, because it's an amazing event that happened, and just to kind of let it sit, let it simmer,
And that's something as well, because I mean, the other thing that really kind of marks the Good Friday portion of the liturgy is, I think, silence. Silence and stillness and emptiness. The tabernacle is empty, the door is empty, and so most places have the tabernacle where you can see it from, right behind the altar or somewhere in the sanctuary. And so it is a striking feature that you notice it's empty. The door is open, you notice it's empty. You don't have an altar cloth on the altar. You're not supposed to have kind of any decorations. Usually the crosses are covered. You're not really supposed to be playing music or having bells. And so it's really just a stark part of the liturgy, just a quiet, meditative, empty feeling, which I think is really appropriate. And so you don't want to kind of fill that emptiness with your own homily, I think, in a sense. So it's probably good you're going to go short.
Yeah. I mean, the irony is this year we're probably having the Blessed Sacrament in the tabernacle because we can't, with the COVID restrictions, it's hard to do a altar repose. So anyway, that's another. This year's a little different for some of this stuff, but yeah, I mean, even the way the liturgy, this part of the liturgy begins is, the priest, if you have servers, we don't have servers, but, would walk in, the priest would actually go prostrate while all the people kneel. And that's actually pretty stark already. Starts in silence and then boom, on the floor. Before what happened, so it's a powerful day. There's no question. It's a powerful service. Yeah.
And it leads right into the part of the liturgy with the most possible readings. So I was trying to count these up, and not including the Psalms, there were a possibility of 8 readings and a gospel that you can do at the Easter Vigil. So you have 7 readings from the Old Testament that are available, and then you have 1 reading from the New Testament, and then you have the gospel, which we're also familiar with, which is finally kind of coming to the empty tomb. We are definitely not doing all 8 readings because we're still under instructions to not make things too long. How many are you guys doing?
We're doing them all.
Okay.
But one of the things that we are doing, because the Missal also gives this as an option, is we're doing every second psalm. Because you can omit a psalm and just insert silence in its place. Now, the third reading, you have to do the canticle that goes with it, because it's the Exodus reading, and it actually leads right into the canticle. Like, there's not even the word of the Lord. It's just, they sang this song to the Lord, and then it's, let us sing to the Lord, Exodus 15. So, but yeah, we're gonna work it out that way. We'll do the first, third, fifth, seventh, whatever, the odd numbered psalms or canticles, and but all the readings, and just because, and I think at least for me, I find it important to hear the readings because it is almost kind of like a miniature walkthrough of salvation history. God realized
that's exactly what it is.
There was something, he created the world, it was good, but humanity fell and needed rescuing. And so it's kind of journeying through the history of Israel and the history of the prophets, foretelling and preparing the way for when God would finally rescue his people from sin and death. And I find it's actually really profound to hear all those readings. And so anyway.
So I have a question for you. Are you going to be baptizing and confirming anyone at this year's Easter Vigil? Yes. So we will be doing that as well. We have 2 people coming into the church. And so the pastor today at lunch was saying something interesting, and I liked it. He said he is going to preach on what baptism is, because you have 2 people who are being baptized, and they are actually having some extended family both be present and watch via live stream, who are not Catholic, who are not Christian at all, to kind of preach on baptism. And honestly, it's a very good reminder for us all, because I think, in a sense, just like we were talking about earlier at the Chrism Mass, priests renew their promises. We renew our baptismal promises. Every time we use the holy water and make the sign of the cross, it's a renewal of our baptismal promises. Every time we actually recite the creed, it's a kind of renewing our baptismal promises. And there are times, especially during the Easter season, when instead of the creed, you can just kind of ask the questions of those baptismal promises of the creed as well. And so I think it's a brilliant move just to kind of very simply preach on what baptism is.
Yeah, absolutely. And, all tied to the victory of Jesus Christ, and there's another part of the liturgy we could preach about too, I guess, in a sense, and that is at the very beginning. So first of all, in the comments there, Jane makes the note that, there's a lack of celebration for like the entirety of Holy Saturday up until that point. Saturday is kind of a stark stillness, even in the Office of Readings in the breviary. One of my favorite readings throughout the entire year is an ancient 2nd century homily. We don't know who wrote it.
Anonymous,
It just talks about how there's a strange silence. Something strange is happening. And then it kind of poetically talks about Jesus going and preaching to the dead and, raising them up. And it's profound. So if you're interested in looking up Office of Readings, the second reading on Holy Saturday. Totally recommend. But then we get into the Easter Vigil itself, and begins with a service of lights. So now this year, because of COVID, we do have an option of not necessarily having a full fire going on, and maybe not even passing candles around. So you're not passing, light around. But in a normal year, you'd have, the missal actually says there'd be a blazing fire set up, ideally outside the church. We kind of do one indoors, but anyway. You have a blazing fire, you bless the fire, you bless the candle, you pass the flame to everybody, so everyone's got their little candle, and the whole church gets lit up with this incredible fire, this light. And then the Exultet, the Easter proclamation, about 8 or 9 minutes worth of music is sung, and it is one of the most poetic texts of the year, as my dog is barking at whoever's outside right now. I don't even hear that. It's fun. But it is one of the most profound texts, I think, in the entire liturgy, is this Easter proclamation. Absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's yeah. I mean, the Exultet is just gorgeous, and it has my favorite line in almost all of Christian theology. Oh, happy fault, oh, necessary fault, that merited for us so great a Savior. The amount of hours I've spent just using those lines as part of prayer is incredible. And so I may actually preach on that line I'm not doing the Easter Vigil, but on Easter Sunday with the Masses is to talk about the Easter Exultet and that line, and to say that. So
I'm not laughing at what you said. I think it's very profound. I'm laughing at what Gloria just said in the comments. I think Jack being her dog. My dog woke up her dog. That's great. Anyway. Yeah, it's an incredible. There's a lot you can do on the Easter Vigil. Again, we have baptisms as well as a reception and a confirmation of an adult. So the sacraments of initiation, the victory of Jesus, it all ties in there, I think, in a profound way. Again, the key, I think, you don't want to go too long with it either, especially if you are doing a lot of the readings, because it's
and especially if you have baptisms and confirmation, because that just, it gets pretty long. And the other thing is, it has to be at night, so it does have a later start than usual. I think ours is starting at 8 p.m. So often this thing will go for 2.5, 3.5 hours is not unusual for that to happen. And so you don't want to keep people from with your homily. And besides, I think there's so much in the liturgy itself that preaches without saying a word, that just allow that to preach as well. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like, what can I add to what's already been taken place, right? To see, like, especially in the case, like this year, baptizing, receiving adults who are standing up in front of everyone and saying, I do, to the promises. That, I think that preaches to the people, to myself, certainly more than anything I could say, the people renewing their baptismal promises and standing up and saying, I do. That's powerful. I mean, the people preach to me big time when that happens. So it's an amazing thing. Anyway,
so I think we're reaching, we're getting to the end, and we haven't even gotten to Easter Sunday yet. And so I think possibly for next week, we'll just do a review of what we did preach on Easter Sunday, and then move into, technically still preaching on Easter Sunday, because for us, Easter is an octave. And so it's Easter Sunday for 8 full days. So you will actually get pretty much the exact same Mass with a little bit different readings, but the exact same Mass on Easter Sunday as you will get Easter Monday, Easter Tuesday, Easter Wednesday, all the way through the next Sunday.
Absolutely. I mean, this Easter Sunday is incredible too. You have the option of which gospel to use. You can use the traditional gospel from John, or the gospel that would have been used the day before for the Easter Vigil. Like the church gives you the option, so the priest doesn't necessarily have to have a different gospel. They're having mercy on us. But and also, if you have a Mass during later on in the day, then you can have the Emmaus readings for the resurrection as well. Traditionally, though, I think usually we go with if you're going with the John reading, that's basically, first of all, the beloved disciple John emphasizing again and again how much of a faster runner he is than Peter cracks me up. It cracks me up so much. Like he's just like hammering it home. Yeah, he's faster than Peter, and we're gonna know it.
Yeah. Really, I guess if last week Mark was able to brag about being naked, then John is allowed to brag about being faster than Peter. So.
I mean, yeah, I love it. You know, Peter and the other disciple set out and went toward the tomb. The two were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent down to look, saw the linen wrappings, but he didn't go in. Then Simon Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb. And then the other disciple, who reached the tomb first, just in case you'd
forgotten the part.
Oh, it cracks me up. But then, of course, Mary Magdalene encounters the risen Lord. And yeah, I mean, I've heard it said, and I guess I'd have to reflect on it more, but at that point, Mary Magdalene was essentially the church.
Yeah.
You know, like she was the one to carry the good news of the resurrection of Jesus, which now we all get to carry, but she witnessed it first. And that's profound. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
So, and John was fast.
There's a lot to look forward to. So, again, let us know what you hear. Let us know how you're watching or participating in the Triduum this year, be it distance live stream, whether you're able to attend. Some of the things that people and parishes may do a little bit differently. I would also be interested in hearing what parts of the liturgy kind of strike you, because there's so many unique parts to this liturgy that aren't in the regular Sunday Mass. Did any of that really kind of interest you or intrigue you or move you in sense? Let us know. Please just let us know.
Yeah, definitely do. It's a pretty awesome time. And like you say, the octave goes on for 8 days. So, hey, this will be fun.
So we will see you next time during those 8 days, during the octave. Look forward to it. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. If you're not able to join us live, again, you can download the podcast wherever you download podcasts, or you can come watch it at homiliechat.com. But again, thank you for joining us. Let us know, and have a blessed Triduum.
Blessings on your Triduum. Take care.